Welcome back, y'all. Tyler Talks. It's been a couple weeks. Um, just getting into my new role at work. Nationals coming up, and I'm leaving Nationals and going straight to Arizona for a work conference. So I am busy where I'll be doing some presentations at the actual conference itself. So I am definitely trying to make sure I'm prepped for both Nationals and for work. So I literally have today and Monday and Tuesday. And I leave early Wednesday morning, and I still don't have a classic or whatever format deck it is for Mr. Classic on Wednesday. But this video is not about that. I got a few cards out here that I want to talk about. Tim did a real good job of just talking about cards and the meta. Jaden did a video yesterday about just top 5 decks with a honorable mention to Joe as well because it was a similar deck, but top 5 decks. I just want to talk about cards you're gonna see, and maybe that'll help. Cards that you're going to see, and cards that could help with cards you're gonna see. So obviously, we're gonna see Matthew. We're seeing John in nativity builds. We're seeing Matthew all over the place. GOC heavy. Um, we're getting Ascension, AOC, Flight into Egypt for nativity. Nativity is getting Star of Bethlehem, Flight into Egypt, Coming Prince, and really trying to get aggressive with 3 to 4, um, like just triggers off Star of Bethlehem, and they want the natural draw off Flight into Egypt. Then they want Star of Bethlehem, Flight into Egypt, and then they want to recur Star of Bethlehem to use again per Flight into Egypt. So they have 3 protections, and they want um, the natural draw on Star of Bethlehem, and I don't even think it necessarily matters if they get it again. Like, they get the natural draw, then they use Star of Bethlehem, and then they Coming Prince to get back Star. So they want to use Flight into Egypt 3 times, and they want to use Star into Bethlehem twice with the potential to get the natural draw up to X. It's very, very fast and aggressive. Tim said it best. It puts the opponent in an impressive board state very quickly. So I agree with Jaden that the nativity offense is not as strong. The nativity deck as a whole really puts more constraints than the quote unquote GOC good stuff. And they're both very fast, but nativity is it's pretty aggressive without Matthew, and they're just ripping through to Star of Bethlehem and playing Star of Bethlehem. It's pretty quick. Plenty of videos on nativity. So if you're like, how do I stop all this stuff? Nativity is not used to fighting regardless of protection. They kind of go in there and just assume, all right, you're going to Herod toss me, or I'm just going to walk in with a big band with some enhancements that back it up if I need to. So if you have any sort of regardless of protection or Wicked Lost Soul, you're in a really good spot. I'm hearing a lot of people, it's just, I can't play defense against these offenses. No, you don't want to play defense against these offenses is how I see it. The offenses aren't letting you play an enhancement. It's also, just in my opinion, not true. It's true to your defensive build, yes, but it's not true for the current game state or the options, opportunities, what's available out there to play. We're definitely going to see Peter's Curse. I've been talking about Ark of the Covenant. I'm glad that Josh shared his list because I actually think Ark of the Covenant should be used in Nativity, and it should be used with Zechariah heavily as well, because you get Zechariah in there. You just have a very strong, like, restrict evil dominance, and if your Zechariah gets hit, you can discard an evil card. If you have any, you will remain as well. That's just a very good attack. So I know Josh is using this in his Disciple build. Josh showed his deck last year before Nats. He ended up using it. I think it's the same thing this year. I think not the same deck. I think what Josh showed is what he's going to be playing. Very good deck. He plays it very well. It's precise, it's calculated, and it's got the Ark of the Covenant to stop the heavy DOMs. because there's a couple decks running around with more heavy doms. So Ark of the Covenant's very good. I do think Ark of the Covenant should be in nativity builds. If you think, just negate neutrals, it once again goes back to people playing with stable and temple, and they just kind of sit behind these two fortresses, and they think they can't be touched because it is very difficult, especially when you're nativity, that if your nativity hero is harmed or defeated, you just reserve it, and then guess what? Stable grabs it. So if you can negate, like with the thief, like I think thieves, Herods are in a very good spot too in the meta because of Herodias, both Herodias and Herodias' daughter. We're not really seeing Herodias anymore, but if you get to restrict your opponent from using their reserve, that takes away a lot of the juice on stable. And then Herodias' daughter, if you can just pop one of these, that does a lot. Nativity constantly is paired with Herod's Temple, and they like to get Herod's Temple out turn 1, and Herod's they're very reliant on Herod's Temple to block. They're using it with Agrippa and Herod the Great. So they just get the hero in battle, boom, toss, and they get a bunch of heroes in battle, or if you attack with a bunch of heroes in battle, boom, toss. If you can quickly target Herod's Temple, you can put that deck on their toes to where they lose a lot of their juice on how they block. If you negate stable, they lose a lot of their resources from reserve because they have a few of those battle winners in reserve, and Nativity doesn't play a lot of battle winners because they want to get Flight into Egypt and Star of Bethlehem in a big bang, or Big Bang Theory, a big band. So if they're using, I was in a meeting earlier and we had to explain how everything comes together in a software, and it was called Big Bang, where it was just all softwares and you kind of consolidate into one and present it, and that's boom, the Big Bang. So that was this morning, so that was on my mind. Big Band, however, Star of Bethlehem, Flight into Egypt, and a lot of times, not a lot of times, every single time from current deck building, the Coming Prince is in reserve. If you can restrict them from going into the reserve, or if you can discard a good card from a reserve and you get the Coming Prince, Nativity is scared. They very much want 2 or 3 attacks that are protected. If you can take that away from them, you're in a very good spot. Focus on fortresses. Nazi is going to be in decks. I wasn't sure how much Nazi was going to. I figured you might see Nazareth 2, maybe 3 times out of 8 rounds. And I still think that's true. However, I think most decks should play. I think Thieves are the best in the meta right now, and they can snag Colosseum Jerusalem. Or if you just have a way to Nazi in your reserve turn 2, and you're more centered on drawing, and you just drop a Nazi, that's really, really good, because Nazi also stops going to the discard pile for Star of Bethlehem, Coming Prince, getting their stuff out from reserve. So I do think you can play whatever aggressive GOC deck you want, but having some of these oppressive pieces built in and you leveraging them differentiates yourself. So Josh plays a Nazi deck and he has Ark of the Covenant, and Josh was running Nazi with a bunch of draw. That was one of his decks and it was really good. Zach Gilbaugh played a very aggressive with Nazi, and that differentiated his deck against others. I think Nazi really bullies Nativity. Nativity doesn't want to see Nazareth. And they can bounce it with Lost Child Found. So that's one thing. If you're not running territory class enhancements, and this is why I think Chad's going to do very well at Nationals, if you're not running territory class enhancements and you can quickly get to Lost Souls that impact the territory and the battle and really inhibit your opponent from doing what they want to do, you're in a very good spot. So if you can throw down a Salty, you have so many ways to Matthew. Like, you still get Matthew. But if you can throw down a Salty that extremely irritates and just stops, hinders, slows down nativity, sure, they need to get Resurrection Revealer and an Angel, but how many times can they do that without their territory class enhancements? So Nazi and Salty are really good in the meta. And I'm pointing at this blank space because it should have been Salty. But if you can stop them from their territory class enhancements, it does stop Spirit of the Dove. Spirit as a Dove, I've seen that before where it's played outside of battle as CBN, but Salty does stop that. It is not outside of battle that it's CBN. It's only in battle. So Salty will stop territory class enhancements, pretty much all of them, but Covenant with Moses, like, I don't know of any others that are real CBP outside of battle, but if you can slow them down and stop them, and you're fine. Like, you can draw a bunch. Like, I really like Chad's build and Josh P's build that's focused on enhancements that give you value, like drawing and banding, and you run Salty and Nazi. I think that would do very well because you're stopping nativity decks and your opponent, and you're pushing through all that. You're not playing territory class enhancements. You're playing value enhancements that are drawing and or battle winners. The Ascension is going to be a massive resource grabber, generous giving. Faith of Samuel, I've seen that before. And then, of course, Baptism of Jesus and Blood of the Lamb. So you can get a lot of cards in battle. You got 4 Drachma Coin, of course, with Matthew. And then just banding in, getting those draw 2s off heroes as well. So very strong build, and I would play the Salty in the crowds with Nazi and stop what my opponent's doing. You need to be able to slow them down because it all comes down to the mirror. And it's like, oh, well, whoever goes first. Well, not if I have a bunch of ways to Lost Souls and I draw 1 and then I can play another 1 or 2 down. Then all of a sudden, they go first, but they can't do anything. And that's that turn 0 interaction that Chad's always talked about. So I do think there's plenty there to slow down the opponent. It's really just people don't want to play them. People love the battle doms. We have talked about complacent, cross complacent. It's very good. We have plenty of evidence once again on Chad winning with cross complacent. Peter's Curse is very strong as well. So I do think you can bring in Peter's Curse, cross, complacent, and you just have these hard counters that you're going right through. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Or if you want to be more aggressive, how do you want to play your offense? Do you want to play your dominance? And yeah, you probably do. So does your opponent. So if you have strong enhancements and you can restrict evil doms with arc, that's great. Restricting good doms is going to impact everyone. Arc can be negated. Arc can be reserved. Negated and reserved of Mary. You can manipulate arc. Peter's Curse is CBN, and really all you need is 3 turns. So if you can take away their good doms and you're comfortable and able to rescue without them, and then when it's your turn, like first turn, you don't have Peter's Curse, and maybe last turn, you need those 3 turns in the middle. They can't get anything going. Their hand's kind of clogged. Peter's Curse is out. Salty's down. Complacent's down. Crowd's down. Nazareth down. They're really not doing anything. You should have already won by now. But then you kind of flip over Peter's Curse and do your thing. So there's plenty to play to stop the aggressiveness of GOC offenses and still play one. Just play with cards that other people aren't playing because they don't want to, because it stops them. Play with them. I promise you there's plenty of drawing. You can stop searching turn 2. and stop that Coming Prince and Flight into Egypt play. You can stop that. I love layers, so if you're playing Herod's, Herodias plus Nazi, very good layer. So that is good. There is a rogue deck that I'm very excited about in Type 1. I hope that individual plays it. And we also have Holy Holies and Pot of Mana. I've said on my channel plenty of times, you do not have to play them both together. I know Olhar's still playing. In my opinion, a good honeypot deck. Jaden talked about it as well. But I do think you can play just Pot of Mana, and I don't think you have to have it protected in CBN. I really don't. I know it's nice to have it, but you can do both or one or the other. I love Holy Holies and Ark of the Covenant. I love mixing and matching these artifacts. I do think you can run Matthew, Peter, 4-drop McCoin, speed cards with priests. Like, I also think that's a very good deck. Everyone knows how to play with and against GOC. Well, not against. Everyone knows how to play with GOC. You throw something at them differently, or the opponent hasn't really had to go up against Pot of Mana all year. It makes them think again. And why I put down these cards at the bottom as well, I've talked about Crimson having more to offer, and why I think it's the best in the meta is because you have, I love Possessing Spirit and Thieves and Demons. You don't have to play Possessing Spirit. You can play Add to Battles with Peter's Curse. This is what Jay has a build like this that was shown on Jaden's channel as well. But you can restrict the Doms, Judas. You can negate their hand protection and prevent the next. Take something from their hand, and you can pop down Colosseum. And if you're running Forsaken, they have to have CBP banding or CBN banding on their characters. And if you're running Forsaken with Colosseum, their Ascension's tossed, their AOC's tossed, if they have the child is born, if they have Hospitality in Bethany, a lot of these banding enhancements are negated for free. You don't have to do anything. Just Forsaken's down, and boom. To Talitha Come, all that stuff. It's all negated for free. And it's not yours. You can still play the banding. And then you have Colosseum Cross, either or. I just like Colosseum because Highwayman puts that thing down first turn, and there goes their Ascension, their AOC, and their Untouchable, and it's very, very difficult for them to interact with Colosseum turn 1 when it comes out of your deck, like once they're already in battle. But people don't want to play Colosseum because, well, now I don't get my CBN. Yeah, you do. They're going to 3-woes it, or they're going to try to get rid of Colosseum. It's the same thing as when you play Nazi and you use your reserve. It's just, well, when do I get to use my reserve? As soon as the opponent negates that Nazi. So I still think you stick a couple CBN, maybe 1 or 2 in reserve. Honestly, you don't need to. There's so many strong enhancements right now. You don't need to run CBN. It's very, very good. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to run AOC. Like, if you can do your Simon right on AOC, choose a blocker, boom, done. That is one of the best plays in the game. So you can play it main deck, and if you go first, you have it. Or you can play it reserve and get it after Colosseum's negated. There's so many ways to stop these strong offenses. It's just people don't want to play them because they want to do what they want. They want to stop GOC offenses without really putting any resources towards it. And that's fine. I get it. I think people forgot chump blocks exist. I guess people forgot about Blood Avenger. Uzza is really good. And then, of course, you have the animals. You can have a whole defense of chumps. We have seen that defense work for 15 years. I don't know what's changed in the last year or two, especially with Roots bringing out a couple more. Moths is really, really good. Nativity they're not playing Guardians from Glory anymore. I'm not seeing Guardians from Glory. I'm not seeing protection for Lost Souls, protection from evil cards, Lost Souls. I'm not seeing any of that. Chump blocks can destroy some of these offenses. Firefoxes and Moths. And if you're not playing Crimson, who cares? Throw a Cove Philistia, get you a draw 2, snag a blocker, and then guess what? You know how good those are in Thieves? Because now my opponent doesn't want to draw, or else I get an auto block, and I have my Thieves that are taking from your hand. So I keep saying I think Crimson's the best in the meta right now with tools. You got Egyptian Rebel, Amalekite Slave, Foreign Wives. Add in Murderous Command, you're in a very good spot with Peter's Curse and Colosseum, and you can add to battle, and you have Sheol from reserve, Jerusalem, pulling out add to battles. It's really good. And if you're playing Salty and Crowds and Forsaken, and you got Colosseum down, and you have chump blocks in your hand and Thieves down, that's a lot that the opponent has to remember you have, and they're going to make mistakes. Promise you. You're going to have all sorts of craziness everywhere. 12-Finger Giant just isn't seeing play. Philistines with black, or just black-gray, the newspaper defense that we've seen from Jeremy, and I call it the newspaper defense, but Jeremy's black-gray, Josh P's black-gray. We're seeing John the Fisherman in just about every deck. We're seeing Joanna, and we're not seeing this guy. So, and you have a CBI ban to him in Philistines. You also have an add to battle, and you have so many ways to add to battle with Philistines. They don't take a lot of resources to be good. They have black in general, but Philistines as well have a lot of ways to add to battle, and some of the best characters in the game. So you get Goliath, and Herod's Temple's down, so Goliath is a beast. Just not seeing a lot of that anymore. And of course, Outsiders is good. Priest of Zeus is great. So I think you can play black, get your brigades down, and have very strong evil characters with a couple add to battles, and you're just fine. You're not really worried about accusers. If accusers comes down, sure, they get your herdsman, but guess what? You just ban you armor bearer to Goliath turn 1 instead. So I think because so many people are coming out with Resurrection, turn 1, boom, play it, get 2-3 heroes in battle, turn 1. Like, all right, block with Goliath. So I think there's plenty ways to go. If I had to play, I'd hate to say it, I'd probably go towards Crimson with Forsaken and just the annoying Lost Souls and Animals, Cove Philistia, have chumps, and have probably 2 add to battles, maybe 3, and play Peter's Curse and just really slow them down and stop what they can do between Colosseum, Forsaken, and then how I can block, whether it's my Animals for chumps or Peter's Curse with the Firefoxes is insane. Renee Reth on the Discord had a very good point too about Glory of the Lord and Fiery Serpents. That's very strong as well. So I think Crimson's really good, and I think Nativity just walks into chump blocks. So, and they're probably not going to play protection from Lost Souls. So I would say add your trump blocks, and if you're really stuck on CBN enhancements, sure, but guess what? So is your opponent. The best thing against CBN enhancements, if you can't toss them, is add to battle. If they're playing Ark of the Covenant, though, all you got is Sheol, and I'm not seeing a lot of Sheol played right now either. So I love Jerusalem and Colosseum with Highwayman. So many ways to get Highwayman. There's a lot you can do. It's just not being played as much. About stopping right on, other than stopping Doms, you kind of can't. They're gonna choose a blocker, bring him in, and blow them all up. So unless you're going heavily into stopping DOMs, or if they do Simon choose the blocker, you have the opportunity to add to battle. So that's also something to keep in mind. Like as soon as you add to battle, so just you got to be able to know your lines of play and where you're going with it. I think that's about it. You're going to see a ton of Ascension. Once again, we can go back to what tosses that. Judas restricting good DOMs when you're blocking is extremely strong. I still like Thief to Sorted and bring in stuff from reserve. I don't know. I think there's a bunch there. I've done plenty of defensive dives on my channel. Look at the Lost Souls. Look at Chad's builds. I said that. Look at Soul Surfer and kind of what he's done with Soul Surfer and the logic behind that. And the other thing, I don't think Guardian of Your Souls is gonna get played. And I think that's because a lot of people are going to be on Nativity due to Tim's success. But I wouldn't run Goys, but that is a very big play. Like I could see Jaden playing Goys with House Divided and like Angels and stuff. But I won't dive too deep into that. Very excited to see who's going to go. So we're kind of like we're scouting the meta. That's what this video is about. So the next thing we're going to do is we're doing the fantasy draft. And if you haven't seen Jaden's video, we're doing a fantasy draft with Chris Fashman, Jake Antonetts, myself, and John Hendricks, the Threshing Floor, and 2 elders. And we are going to physically draft, like, okay, physically might not be the best word. We're not like picking them up and bringing them over. We're going to draft players. And we each 4 players. I think that was it. It could be 6. I forgot. But we're gonna draft players, and Chris he gets first overall pick. Then Jake, then myself, and then John. It's a really cool video. I loved how Jaden did it. And for a snake draft, it would go Chris 1, Jake 2, myself 3, John Hendricks 4, John Hendricks 5, and then I would get the 6th pick. Jake would get the 7th, Chris would get the 8th, and then Chris would get the 9th pick, and so on and so forth. So how a snake, the old Snake IO for you new people, and Snake, the OG Snake on the flip phone, Nokia baby, the brick, not the flip. That Snake as well. Actually, I think there's a OG Snake, but anyway. So we're going to scout the meta, and we're going to scout players. We're not going to do this too much. Y'all don't need to see everything. That could be kind of boring. But Brian, it kind of killed it all season. If we're in current rankings for RNRS, and Brian just smoking the tournament field. This is very interesting. Hats off to these 3, because it's not just a matter of they have a perfect season so far. They have good play groups. Like Jay has a smaller play group, but he still has Chris plays some crazy unorthodox stuff, and he's got this all sorts of like the full onslaught of orange place. And Caden plays a very fast, aggressive banding, and they also got Ron, who always plays some sort of meta deck as well. And then they have other people travel. Just the fact that even if your play group isn't as strong, winning every single one is just crazy. So I don't know if we've ever had a perfect season three-way tie going into nationals for Type 1-2 player. It could happen. It could have happened. I don't know though. To my recollection, it has not, and it's all 3 players that have a legitimate shot at top cut. So this will be exciting. We're not doing anything based on RNRS because of this guy. Sorry, Brian. And then we go into teams and kind of see who's there as well. And then type 2. So we're going to be drafting from, to my knowledge, these 5 categories. I don't think any type A. So we're going to be drafting from these 5 categories, and we are picking players. So, like, to my knowledge, Grayson isn't going to nationals, so we kind of have to know who's all going, and then based on how they do, like your actual points for your category. So, for example, if I finish 3rd place at nationals, then it's my however many game points I got would be my score. I'm only playing one day, more than likely. I need to kind of make sure I'm not needed any other days. If I'm going to play a 3rd day or a 2nd day up front, I will not be withholding information and then be like, all right, I'm drafting myself. Oh, I'm playing 2-3 days. But I will be playing, to my knowledge, I plan on playing 1 day only right now. I would love to play sealed. But either way, we're going to look at like who to kind of draft. So we need to know, and I'm not going to get into everything. I'm just kind of going over like what I'm going to be looking at and looking at current rankings, and then who I know to be going to nationals. And then I'll be looking at prior Lackey Grand Prix. Hendricks did a very good Redemption Nationals, like fantasy draft board. And I'll be looking at who's playing what categories as well. Because if on type 2 day, that's booster, if Justin, Jaden, myself, Jeremy, we're all in type 2, and then there's other players in type 1, chances are these 3 and myself, we're duking it out, but they have a higher percentage of getting top 3 compared to players that are playing booster. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. If a lot of people are playing teams, top players, then I could look at a top player playing sealed. And then I got to see, like, okay, Brian's maxed out sealed. I know he tends to not only play sealed at Nats, but win sealed at Nats. So Brian's probably going to be a top pick. Like, I think Chris is going to want to pick Brian first because you get him in booster and in sealed with a legitimate shot at him doing well in type 1 as well. So I think Brian goes first. Then you have Jake. Jake could pick himself. If he doesn't, maybe I might pick him out of spite because I get 2 picks once Jake is done. But like Jay's going to be a very top pick. Jeremy, Jay, I don't think you're going to be a top pick because I don't know how many days you're playing. So Jay might get bumped down because he's only playing 1 day. But Jeremy, who is back-to-back champ in Type 2, 2nd place in Type 1, who always does well in booster teams, well, we all know that's because of Hendricks. But Jeremy's probably going to be pick 1 or 2 as well. So then that leaves these bums, the Allsteads, right? But so there's going to be a lot of just great players to pick from. And the first round's always fun. Like, who's getting Tim? Like, where's Tim going? He's been playing nonstop, but it's his first nationals in a long time. So Tim's been on an absolute tear. Are we looking at the power rankings? I think there's going to be some very strong teams, and it's just a lot of fun to do. It's a fantasy draft, and we're going to get down here to players that are really good that haven't been to as many tournaments this year, where we're going to want to draft them, and it really includes a lot of people. I love seeing that. Type 1 teams. Like, I would love for Gabe to play. I have no clue. I haven't talked to him about it. That's his business. I would love if Gabe played. That could be, you could get Gabe Isbell as as Mr. Irrelevant, right? That's a football term, as the very last draft pick. And Gabe can be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for teams. He's the GOAT of teams. So if he comes in as teams, you could be getting this massive 30-point boost. I don't know. A big boost to your winning score with your last pick. Also, with teams, you can what's called hedging your bet, or you can double down. So let's just say John and E-Man, which I suspect they've been on the same team all year. Let's say John McLeishan and Emmanuel Echevarria are playing on the same team. I can draft them at the very end, and if they do well in teams, I just double down on my points. So it really depends on knowing, like, Jeremy and John. If you get Jeremy early and you get John, maybe a value pick, and Jeremy's going to drag John to the finish line, then I take shots at John because I get obliterated on that podcast. He roasts me too, so I gotta take some shots when I can. But if Jeremy's going to drag John to a top 3 finish, you can get Ole Hendricks, and guess what? He also did very well last year in Type 1. I think he was 8th or 6th, but we're looking at potential top cut material right there as well. So I think it'll be a lot of fun drafting to see who plays what days and keeping score, and with John with his new microphone going over, like, every day we can do, like, right there you're doing interviews with winners. We're doing live updates on the draft. We have surprises at nationals all over the place, so it's going to be a phenomenal Nats. Maybe we're withholding too much information, or maybe we're building up hype too late. I don't know, but it is going to be a very good nationals. So I'm hoping for a good turnout. I assume like 75 people, which is fine by me. Want to get those numbers back up to 100. But I think with Top Cut, competitive, very competitive Type 2, I imagine, with Israel's Inheritance and Sealed and Booster having all of Roots, like, I think we're going to see some of the best format play we've seen in a long time. So if you want, I've had plenty of people message me their decks based on my last video. If you want me to look over it, I'm not playing Type 1. I know I teased that a little bit, but I have to focus on Type 2, and it was taking away too much. I don't have enough time going into Nats to focus on Type 1. If I was going to Nats, like I said, I would play Thieves, Covenant with Philistia, with Colosseum, Jerusalem, Animal Chump blocks, and the Lost Souls that are very annoying. And I would slow down these GOC offenses in multiple ways. No territory class enhancements, no banding, toss CBN, and there's just a lot of stuff that they have to get around, and it flips the board on them, and I can do it just as fast. And I'd probably play some GOC thing, I don't know. But that, from at least a defensive standpoint, that's what I would play. I think there's enough to where you could block, and you can block with the chumps and get out from under this stuff. But if you want to send your deck to me, or just any questions you got, if you haven't been to nationals before, if you're like, hey, how do I do better? I get nerves. I get nervous when I play. I miss my upkeep, or I miss triggers, or like any sort of advice. I've given that advice before on my channel, but I have been to, there's very few people that have been to more nationals than I have at this point. So, and I've played in a lot of them. So any experience, just ask me. I still get nervous when I play, but I'm playing cleaner this year than I ever have in the past. So I can discuss with you why. But if you got any questions, or it's like, hey, can you look over my deck? I'm having a tough time stopping GOC, or my offense just isn't working like I want it to, send it over, whichever. I'll be happy to help. If not, I will see you all Wednesday at Mr. Classic and bright and early for Nationals on Thursday. And hopefully there's a couple more surprises before Nats. So can't wait to see y'all. Thanks for watching.